navigating modern manhood, exploring what it means to be a father, a husband, and a man in the 21st century. Now with your hosts, Scott and David.
Hi, I'm Scott, and today we're going to dial in a little bit more on David. We're going to find out more about him and what he does. And I think I'll throw him under the bus right now. David, can you tell us a little bit about EQ and what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Scott, EQ stands for emotional intelligence. And I work for 6 Seconds, which is a global organization here in Europe, in the European division, helping people to really explore and understand their own EQ and how to use this actually as a tool for others as well.
That's brilliant. So, you mentioned there that it's a tool. So, as a tool, is emotional intelligence, or EQ as you call it, is that something that you can measure?
Absolutely. So there are many instruments around to measure EQ. So one thing to know about EQ is that it is learnable and measurable in the sense that it is something that we can grow inside ourselves. We're not born with EQ like we're born with IQ. We can develop it. We can look at how we can enhance it, not only for ourselves, but also for others. So there are some really interesting tools around, and at 6 Seconds, we have a few. Some of the more popular ones are by Daniel Goleman. But 25 years ago, Daniel Goleman actually came to the founders of 6 Seconds and said, I need you to help make this more practical, learnable, and ultimately measurable. So about 20 years ago, the 6 Seconds invented the SEI assessment, which is 6 in Italian. And what that gives us is a snapshot of several competencies of emotional intelligence, including our awareness, our intention, and our purpose. And there are some really lovely competencies, as I say, 8 competencies under those 3 areas that we can look at. And then through coaching, people can improve.
Right on. So, you mentioned that it's something that we're not born with. Is the emotional intelligence is something that people can learn on their own, or it's really important, or you get a greater understanding when you jump in with 6 Seconds?
Well, I think 6 Seconds, a counselor, a coach, a mentor like you, Scott, someone who can help you to deepen your experience with your emotions. So all emotions are data. So that means that there are no good and bad. People often say, oh, I can't feel those negative emotions, or I only want to have positive emotions in my life. That's a misnomer around emotion. All emotions are data. There is a message, a chemical message behind every emotion that we experience. So it's something that we're always feeling emotion. I don't know about you, but right now you'd be feeling something. Those who are watching are feeling something. Now, if you're watching on a crowded train versus at home on a big screen TV, the experience, the emotional experience for you might be very different. And so it's really understanding, what am I feeling in this moment? What else am I feeling in this moment? And then the emotional intelligence part starts to say, well, what choices do I have? What options have I got that I can exercise in this moment? And some of those options might actually fuel optimism and help you to navigate emotions. And then that ties in with purpose in the sense of, well, what do I really want out of this situation? How do I want to move forward? So we all have emotions, is the short version. Emotions are data, but emotional intelligence is what we do with those emotions. You see, it's how we create change in our lives. And so if we start by recognizing that emotions aren't negative or positive, they're unpleasant or they're pleasant. And they can also be less intense and more intense. So where you might put them in that matrix can really be a sign for you as to where you are in this moment.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, and I absolutely love that. And I love how your wording is they're not negative or positive, because when there's a negative or positive association, there's judgment to it. And when you're saying that it's the opposite way around, that it's gone straight out of my head again. It's wonderful me. So there's the emotion coming through. Get brain freeze.
Now you're stressed, yeah.
Yeah. So like it comes through, and there's the connotation with it that you use. So how do you use that and associate that with tone? Because as a voice coach as well, obviously you pick that up and you can understand and read people a whole lot better.
Yeah. So I'm sure you and we're parents, we're both fathers, of course, and so you'd recognize that when you speak to your kids sometimes, and they have a different reaction from what you thought they would. My boys are one is a teenager, one is almost a teen, and so the point sometimes is that we say to the older one, just be careful how you're talking to people because you can come across as very harsh sounding, very assertive, but to the point where it might be misinterpreted by people. So my belief as a
That's
voice coach is that
yeah,
our voices are always giving an indication of how we are. When we're upset, what happens to your voice? When you're angry, what happens to your voice? When you are anxious, doing a podcast or doing something else, what happens to your voice and to your breathing, especially. So when we add the breathing aspect to our voices, we can understand how to control. I wouldn't say control, how to extend and navigate our emotions in order to feel like we may have a sense of control and a sense of
yeah,
is really what I mean there. So I
and
really believe our vocal tone is everything.
that's brilliant. And you just jumped on the word which is in our title, navigating. So when you're navigating the emotions, is it best to learn them through a book, or is it better to go through a course or have that interaction with a mentor or a coach, or in a course in a group setting? What's your personal belief behind this?
Yeah, I mean, my personal journey, in a way, started with reading emotional intelligence back when I studied psychology back 25 years ago at uni. And it was a relatively new subject at the time. So you can read about emotions, and that's great. That may open the door for you. But of course, I'm always a big believer in the experience of emotional intelligence. So I run some courses with 6 seconds that can help people in that direction. And of course, working with a coach, a counselor, a mentor, a professional, someone who's trained in this area can ask you the right types of questions. So we know what it's like when we have a really good chat with a close friend, when we feel heard, when we're able to share and reciprocate both communication but also emotions. There's a really key concept. Emotions are contagious, which means that what I might be feeling now is being shared with you. What we're feeling and sharing might be shared by some of our viewers, people who are watching on, you see. And so we therefore have an element of understanding when we turn up to a situation, we are contagious. So which contagion do you want to spread? Less pleasant contagion or more pleasant contagion in that sense, you see?
Yeah, and that's brilliant. And that's just like sometimes you start laughing when someone else is laughing, you don't know why, and that's because it's all contagious. So that's brilliant. A great example.
Yeah.
So diving in with that, who then should use a voice coach or seek out a voice coach? Is it just people who wish to understand their emotions, or is it just general communication?
Well, I work in three areas. So in general communication as a voice coach, so people come to me because they may want to use I use singing exercises and my experience as an opera singer to help people unlock aspects of themselves, to really explore and experiment what their voices can actually do. Then, if we tie that into, I do a lot of language coaching. And so that means that the choice of words that we're thinking about, how we utilize those words, can we add emotional words in on top of that, which then lends itself to emotional intelligence. And so I often coach people on how, and we have models at 6 seconds where we can really understand how people can better utilize emotions through these models. So, two of these models are here on screen. One is our KCG model, know, choose, and give. And this is the Plutchik model of emotions. It's like an emotions flower or a cone. And so it shows you when an emotion goes from being, if we have anger in the middle, we have annoyance on one side, and we have rage on the other side. So as we're mainly speaking to man and navigating modern manhood, we might go from a subtle feeling of annoyance, something happens. Then we get angry when that intensifies, and that can lead to rage when it goes even further. Now, that's not to say that one is good or bad. Again, they're just more or less unpleasant in that moment. The question is, if you're feeling rage, how can you name it to tame it? How can you step back from it? And how can you navigate that for yourself so you don't end up smashing someone or a thing or saying something that you regret? that's being emotionally unintelligent. So
Yeah.
the models can help you to understand, what you're feeling, why you're feeling that, and how you can work with that. So it's not saying any emotions are wrong. It's just understanding how we use those. So that's where a coach can really help. The coach can then, help people with the vocal tone side as well. So I work in these three areas because I see a strong interlink between them, and that's also where my career history's been. I've been a language coach. I've been a voice coach. As an opera singer, I've been a coach, and now also in emotional intelligence as well.
So would you then say that your emotional intelligence and all the work that you've developed in is giving you the ability to respond rather than react? So such as that rage where you wanted to tame it, that rage, using that rage was being able to respond and use it in a way that's beneficial for you and the others around you.
I wouldn't say I'm perfect. I don't think any of us are, but I would say that the time between stimulus and response or reaction and what you do with that, the behavior or consequence, is shorter. So I also, feel emotions. I'm not always emotionally intelligent. The question then is, when I feel something happening, okay, what am I doing with it, and how can I move through that? So we can sort of cycle down through certain emotions. We might feel rage. We just don't go to joy on the other side. We actually have to first, we take that, if we were to plot rage as sort of intense and less pleasant, we actually then have to cycle through and reduce the intensity first, and then start to make something more pleasant. So that might be from that rage to a sense of anger to a sense of annoyance. Annoyance might go across towards less annoyance, towards some kind of version of joy, or of I think joy is up here, of acceptance. Yeah, up here in the green, acceptance, then trust, then admiration, or serenity. Even if we use joy, serenity, then joy, then ecstasy. You see? So ecstasy and rage are kind of opposites on this U-shaped curve. That's really important to understand. You can't go from ecstasy to rage in a split second. You see, you have to go through, and that's why navigating is such an important word, and also the word that we chose together for our series, because it is about us, both of us, and then the people that we speak to, understanding that it's always a river. It's always flowing. There's always a direction. We need to move in a way that feels like we have integrity, honesty, and authenticity as well. And I think emotional intelligence can help you to shorten the cycle. When you study it, when you coach in it, when you seek help in it, it helps really to shorten that cycle.
Absolutely, and as you said there, it's you go from the extremes. You can't, well, you can. People do jump from one extreme to the other, but with your emotional intelligence, it is the ride, and it's a bit of navigation, exploration. So maybe that
Yeah.
flower is that the 8 areas of life that you said you can associate the emotions in. Is that what you were mentioning at the beginning?
It's the Plutchik model. So for people looking on, Plutchik is Plutchik. He was a scientist back in, I think, the 60s, and he came up with these 8 basic emotions. And there are many other models of emotional intelligence, in the sense of how we can label our emotions. And emotional literacy, like reading literacy, is what this model is about. So it offers you an opportunity to say, right, I'm feeling this. What would make it less intense, and what could make it more intense as well? So it's really useful for people to understand. And I have it here to remind myself. I have this model here to remind myself as I'm coaching people to use my emotional intelligence as well. I do a lot of digital work, so as I'm looking at myself now, I can see my models, are here, which I think is useful. We have to. You mentioned before, can I read a book? Can I experiment? Can I get a coach? You can do all those things, but like in anything, if you don't pay regular attention to it, it's going to become less significant in your life. And so I try to remind myself. I have, other little cards here of some 6 seconds models and other things that can be helpful for people to really understand.
That's brilliant. So it's always having something in the back of the mind that you can call upon at any point in time. So
Yeah.
that's cool. And so as I use you as an inspirational, so I use as aspirational person that I desire to be, especially around my communication. Um, what else has helped you to discover and develop your voice?
Singing. So, as I mentioned, I'm a former opera singer, and I only discovered that I could sing at 23. But I've also been, for the last 8 years since living in Austria, a Toastmaster. And so Toastmasters is a worldwide public speaking organization. There's probably a club wherever you're living, if not too far away. So there's one where you are, Scott, in Ljubljana, which is a well-known club. And so, every twice a month, you can check in, you can give some small speeches or some impromptu moments and start to develop your speaking skills. And that will develop your voice, of course, because your voice and your communication go hand in hand. The question then is also, go further from that. I'm not a speech pathologist, but certainly if people have had an injury or have a vocal issue, you need to go and seek a professional. But I, as a voice coach, work with people on volume, on pitch, on their tonal choices, on the speed of their speaking, adding pause, all of these communication techniques that really, when we break them down, help us to sound more eloquent, to share the message that we want to share in the best possible way. And I like to say I have a toolkit. So if you work with a coach to develop your voice, you would expect that that person can give you things that you can go away, implement, and then try and do for yourself independently. So, and it takes practice, all day, every day. I'm sitting here coaching using my microphone. I've got other things. I really enjoy that, but I also warm up every morning. So if you wanted to develop your voice, you do need to warm up, and that can be as simple to give you a warm up is as simple as going ah where you start in a lower part of your voice and you allow your voice just to rise. Do you want to try it?
On my breaking
Ah,
space. Here we go. Uh,
that's it. Ah, and then
yeah,
try
that's cool.
like a yawn. Ah, ah. Is that
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you
So
can
by
feel that. You
going
can feel it.
up
And
and
also the
down.
energy that comes with it as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So you should feel energy. You should feel vibrancy. You should feel a sense of life, coming to your voice. So, for men especially, I think we get told, or maybe it seems almost cliche, that we should speak low and slow and not say much. I don't agree
Mm.
with that. I think all people need to use all parts of their voice. Fast, high, low, fast, slow is one of my ideas. So where do you place your voice on that spectrum? So if you're talking
Right.
to your kids and you say, "Oh, hey kids, how was your day at school? That's fantastic. What a great job you did today." Then it doesn't sound as interesting as when you say, "Hey kids, how was your day at school today? What did you get up
Yeah.
to? That's great." And see how my voice is way up here now?
Yeah, and I can pick up the
I'm
excitement
going to,
in your voice in the second
yeah.
side, and almost boredom in the monotone, and I
Ah,
think that's a real key importance as well. Is when you use your voice, when you have the changes in tone, that you're actually trying to excite people and
mhm,
grab their attention. So
yeah,
it's, yeah, if someone's monotone, it's or your university and your lecturer is monotone, you're just going to fall asleep in the chair. But if someone's really excited and passionate about what they're talking about, it really grab your attention, and that's where it
yeah.
goes back to what you were saying before, that it's contagious. If you can get that contagious vibe going and you can
Mhm.
stimulate it, then it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a beautiful, gift from a student the other day, at my class down in Burgenland, where this lady said, "You're so engaging." And I do it on purpose. I'm going in with that energy. And so we have to know that as people who communicate, what we feel, others feel. We pass that on. It's the contagion aspect. It happens unconsciously. So this is the choice element, you see. Every conversation we show up to, you have a choice about how you sound, with your high or low, fast or slow, what energy you're bringing, how excited you are to see the other person. So I was really looking forward to seeing my class the other day. It was our second session in 2 days, and they'd had a full weekend of classes. So I knew that they'd be tired. I thought, well, they probably need a little bit more energy. So I came in full of smiles saying, hey, how are you all? What's been happening? How's this weekend been for you? Wow. And I listened. But if I had come in and said, all right, everyone, let's get on to English class, the final one for today. I'm sure you're tired, but, let's just get into it, please. You
Yeah.
can hear the lack of connection in my voice. And
And that's
so,
exactly where I was taking you, was connection. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's what helps to bring connection with others, I think. And I mean, of course, you can also think about things like matching and mirroring. So we talk about that, in our coaching and various things. But I don't mean mimicking somebody, but somebody may have more pace and excitement in their sound. So you can either be the opposite, or you could match and mirror that a little bit. It may be that you want to be the opposite in order to allow that person to calm down a little bit, or to come to a neutral space. It's that polarity that we've often heard about. I can be on this end, you can be on that end, but slowly by the end of our conversation, I'm up a little bit more, the other person's calmer a little bit more, and then we resonate in the middle together, in
Yeah.
that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that's also using your awareness and emotional intelligence to read this situation and figure out what's best. Now,
Yeah.
that's really cool. And it's one other thing that you mentioned there was practice too, right? So everybody needs to throw in the practice. That's one of the things that you and I both do, is that we can lead someone to a breakthrough moment. Doesn't mean that they've changed. You've just come through the breakthrough moment, and that's where you need to put the repetition in to
Yeah.
make sure that it becomes a pattern. And then once it becomes a pattern, then it becomes second nature and it becomes automatic. And then it's stuck in your subconscious.
And a part of that of your identity.
Absolutely. And once
that's
it's in your
really
identity, it's very difficult to change. But
Yeah.
once it's in, it's something that you, as you said, it's a toolkit. You can use it and you can call on it when required. So
Yeah.
that's brilliant. And I really appreciate everything that you've told us here. It's been very insightful. Now, for our listeners here, what would be maybe one or two things that you would really wish that they could take away from this today?
Mhm. So, I mean, I really think that people can empower themselves to take responsibility for their communication. That's the one thing that I think is the key takeaway. How
That's
you
brilliant.
do that is up to you. So the second aspect then is find a coach, take some singing lessons, work with a mentor, record yourself. So if you've got nobody else in your life you can talk to, or you're doing this quickly to prepare for a presentation or something, videotape yourself. Give yourself some feedback. Is this how you want to show up to others? And ultimately, join places like Toastmasters or Rotary, or an organization where you can contribute and stand up and say a few words from time to time, because it's always a nerve-wracking experience, even for me now as an experienced Toastmaster and performer, because every audience is new, every moment is new, and you don't even know if you'll fully get there. It's like a tightrope. You're walking the tightrope. You could fall off, or you might get to the other side.
Absolutely. And that's part of it, right? Like, you and I are both very good at mentoring and talking in groups. However, for me, this is, when I've got the knowledge that this is being recorded, that's where I start to stutter. This is where the emotions come up. So yeah, it's really quite different. And that's where the external environment can impact. And as you said, it comes down to...
Oh, we've lost you. We lost you there, Scott. So just finish it up. There we go. You're back.
Yeah, good timing though, just when I was winding up. But I was just saying I really appreciate you diving in and telling us everything about it. It's been very insightful, and everybody that's listening, I really appreciate you guys dialing in again and listening to us and listening what we're trying to share with you all. So looking forward to seeing you again on the next one.
This has been another episode of Modern Manhood. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please click to subscribe and make sure you stay connected. We are navigating modern manhood. Join Scott and David next time.